The Dark Romance Builder presents. When the Vampire King saw the bruises on his wife's arms, fingerprints pressed into her skin like accusations, he didn't rage, he didn't roar, he went quiet. And in a town ruled by monsters, his silence was the most terrifying sound anyone had ever heard. She had been sold to him, a treaty bride, a political pawn, a human woman traded to the undead court to keep the peace between species. She expected cruelty. She expected to be forgotten in some tower. What she didn't expect was that the monster on the throne would trace those bruises with a feather-light touch and whisper, "Give me the name." What she couldn't tell him, not yet, not without destroying the fragile alliance holding two worlds together, was that the man who hurt her was his most trusted advisor, and what nobody knew, not even the king himself, was that she carried in her blood the only cure for the slow-burning curse eating him alive from the inside. This is a story about a woman who walked into a monster's court with her chin raised and her hands shaking. Stay until the end, because when she finally breaks his curse, she does it on her knees, covered in his blood, screaming his name, and it's the most powerful thing you've ever heard. The throne room smelled of cold stone and old iron. Elara Voss noticed it the moment the double doors groaned open, that mineral tang, sharp and ancient, coating the back of her throat. It would stay with her, that iron smell, it would change as she changed. But tonight, standing at the far end of a hall lined with silent, pale-faced courtiers, it was simply cold. Cold iron, cold stone, cold eyes watching her walk forward in a borrowed dress with her wrists hidden beneath long sleeves. He sat at the far end, not slouched, not lounging. Still, the Vampire King of Ashenmoor, Kael'Voreth. Tall, even-seated, sharp-jawed, black hair pushed back from a face that looked carved rather than born. His eyes were dark, not red, not glowing, just dark, and fixed on her with an attention so total it felt physical. She kept walking. 30 steps, 20, 10. The courtiers didn't breathe. Neither did he. Lord Aldrich Thane stood 3 paces to the king's left, silver-haired, sharp-smiled, the man who had arranged this marriage and who had, 4 hours ago, seized Elara's arm hard enough to leave 5 perfect fingerprints below her elbow when she'd hesitated at a doorway. "Walk faster," he'd hissed. "Smile. You're a gift." She was not smiling now. She stopped at the base of the throne steps and did not kneel. The silence stretched. Aldrich's jaw tightened, 2 guards shifted, and Kael'Voreth, the Vampire King, the monster she had been traded to, tilted his head. That iron smell thickened. "They told me," he said, and his voice was low, unhurried, carrying without effort, "that you would be afraid." Elara looked at him. Her pulse hammered so hard she knew every vampire in this room could hear it. Her mouth was dry, her knees were locked to keep from trembling, but her voice came out steady. "They told me you would be cruel." Something shifted in his expression. Not a smile, a fracture, the faintest crack in that carved stillness, gone before she could name it. "Are you?" she asked. "Cruel." He studied her for 3 full seconds. Then quietly, "I have been." "That's not an answer." "It's the honest one." Behind her, she heard Aldrich's sharp intake of breath, scandalized that she was speaking at all, let alone like this. Like an equal. Like someone who had already decided that if she was going to die in a monster's court, she would die with her dignity intact. Kael'Voreth stood. He was taller than she'd estimated. He descended 2 steps, and the iron smell changed. Warmer now, blood-warm, laced with something darker that she couldn't identify. He stopped 1 step above her, close enough that she had to tip her chin up to hold his gaze. "You are Elara Voss," he said. "Not a question. Daughter of the Border Lord, sent to seal the treaty between Ashenmoor and the human territories." His eyes moved over her face. "My wife, by arrangement." "By arrangement," he agreed. Then, lower, "Are you hurt?" She blinked. Of every question she had prepared for, this was not among them. "What?" "You're favoring your left side. Your sleeves are longer than the dress requires, and your heartbeat spiked when you passed Aldrich." His gaze didn't move from hers. "Are you hurt?" The hall was silent as a crypt. Elara swallowed. If she told him now, if she named his advisor, his strategist, the man who had brokered this very treaty, the alliance could shatter, war could restart. Her people, already starving, already dying, would burn. "I am fine," she said. He looked at her for a long time. Then he stepped back. "Quarters have been prepared for you," he said, and his voice carried no warmth, no gentleness, nothing she could hold on to. "In the east wing, separate from mine, the door locks from the inside." He paused. "I will not enter without your permission. This I swear to you before every witness in this room." A murmur ran through the courtiers. Aldrich's sharp smile faltered, and Elara Voss, standing in a monster's hall with bruises hidden beneath silk, felt the first impossible stir of something she did not dare name. She nodded. She was escorted away. She did not look back. But if she had, she would have seen the Vampire King standing exactly where she'd left him, his hands very carefully held behind his back and his dark eyes following her until the doors closed between them. The next time Iron would change was 2 days later. Elara was in the East Wing library, a room no one seemed to use, thick with dust and old books and the faint mineral smell that lived in every stone of this castle. She had pushed her sleeves up without thinking. The bruises had darkened overnight to a mottled purple-black, each fingerprint distinct as a brand. The door opened. She yanked her sleeves down, but his eyes had already found them. Cale stood in the doorway. He did not enter. His gaze was fixed on her wrists, on the 3 seconds of exposed skin she hadn't been fast enough to hide, and his expression was something she had no framework for. Not anger, not pity. Devastation. Who? One word. Quiet as a closed fist. "It doesn't matter. It is the only thing that matters." He still hadn't crossed the threshold. His fingers gripped the doorframe and she actually heard, stone crack beneath his hand. "You are under my protection. You are my wife. Someone in my court put their hands on you, and I am asking you, Elara, to give me the name." The way he said her name. Not the formal Lady Voss. Not the human. Her name with a weight that made it sound like something precious, something he was choosing to hold carefully. "If I tell you," she said, "it could destroy the treaty. I don't care. My people will care. When they're dying in a war that restarted because I couldn't keep silent." He was quiet. The crack in the doorframe widened under his grip. "Then I will find out myself," he said. "And when I do, I will not ask your permission for what comes next. But I will never force you to speak." He released the doorframe, stepped back. "This I also swear." She stared at the cracked stone where his fingers had been. "You keep swearing things," she said softly. "You keep deserving them." He left. The iron smell stayed, warmer now, almost alive. 3 days later, the court gathered for the formal bonding ceremony, the public acknowledgement of their marriage before the assembled noble houses of Ashenmore. Elara wore a dress that Cale had sent to her quarters with a note that read simply, "It covers everything. Yours to alter as you wish." The sleeves reached her knuckles. The neckline was high. She had never felt more seen by a garment in her life. Aldrich intercepted her in the corridor before the ceremony. "You look almost presentable," he said, falling into step beside her. His voice was silk over broken glass. "Remember what I told you. Smile, bow when instructed. Do not speak unless spoken to. You're here to solidify my treaty, girl, not to play queen." "Your treaty?" His hand closed on her upper arm. Same grip, same bruising force. She gasped. "My treaty," he repeated. "I built this alliance. I chose you specifically. A border lord's daughter, disposable, forgettable, easy to control. If you think that creature on the throne actually cares about one breakable human woman, remove your hand." Cale's voice came from behind them, low, controlled, and carrying an undercurrent of something that made every torch in the corridor gutter and die. Aldrich's hand dropped. He turned, composing his face into practiced surprise. "My king, I was merely escorting your bride." By her bruises, silence. I can see them, Aldrich. Through the fabric. Vampiric sight, remember? Cale stepped forward, and the iron smell flooded the corridor. Hot now, metallic as fresh blood. 5 fingerprints on her left arm, 5 on her right, spaced identically. Same hand. Your hand. Aldrich's composure cracked. She's lying. She must have told you. She told me nothing. She protected you. Cale's voice dropped to something barely audible. She sacrificed her own safety to protect the alliance you built, and you repaid that loyalty by putting your hands on her again, in my house, under my name. He moved past Aldrich without touching him. Took Ilara's hand. Gently, so gently, his cool fingers hovering over hers before making contact. Is this acceptable? She nodded. He led her into the ceremony hall, her hand in his, and spoke 5 words to the assembled court that were not part of any traditional bonding rite. Aldrich Thane no longer advises the crown. Then he turned to her, in full view of every noble house, and said, Ilara Vorath, not Voss. Vorath, his name, given to her as a shield. Aldrich stood frozen at the back of the hall. His smile was gone. The iron smell settled against Ilara's skin, warm and steady, and for the first time it did not feel like the scent of a prison. It felt like the scent of a door being locked from the inside. With her holding the key, that night she stood in her quarters and listened to the silence of the castle. Separate rooms, locked door. His promise. She crossed to the door and opened it. The corridor was empty. But at the far end, his door was cracked open, and candlelight fell through the gap. She walked to it, stopped, knocked. Come in. His voice, quiet. She pushed the door open. He was standing by the window, half-turned, his coat removed, shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows. The candlelight caught the hard planes of his forearms, the pale skin, the controlled stillness of his posture. You can say no, she said. He turned fully. To what? I want to touch you. His breath. He didn't need to breathe, but he did it anyway, a vestigial habit. Stopped. Where? She stepped closer. The iron smell was everywhere now, blood warm and thick, rising from his skin. Your hands. I want to hold your hands. He held them out, palms up. His fingers were long, his knuckles scarred with old marks she couldn't read. She placed her palms against his and felt the temperature difference, her warmth against his cool, and something in her chest broke open. Your hands don't bruise, she whispered. They never will. I believe you. He closed his fingers around hers slowly, watching her face the entire time for any sign of withdrawal. She gave none. Ilara. Yes? I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. All right. Do you want to be here? She looked up at him. His dark eyes were unguarded in a way she had never seen from anyone, human or otherwise. Open, afraid of her answer. Yes, she said. His fingers tightened fractionally, then loosened. Then he lifted her hand and pressed his lips to her knuckles, a gesture so restrained, so deliberately small, that it said more than any declaration could have. Then stay, he said. She stayed, but she did not stay in his room. Not yet. She went back to hers, and she lay awake until dawn, and she pressed her hands against her own chest and tried to understand when the cold iron smell had started to feel warm. It was the maidservant who broke it open. Nessa, round-faced, sharp-tongued, the only human servant in the castle who had survived long enough to earn the vampire's grudging respect, appeared at Ilara's door, the breakfast tray, and an expression that meant trouble. He hasn't slept in 4 days, Nessa said, setting down the tray with a deliberate clatter. Which is normal for his kind, except he isn't sleeping by choice anymore. He's not sleeping because he's pacing outside your corridor every night, making sure Aldrich doesn't come near your door. I didn't ask him to. Of course you didn't. That's what's driving him mad. Nessa poured tea with violent precision. The man, the creature, whatever you want to call him, is wound so tight he's cracking his own furniture. Every guard in the East Wing has requested reassignment. He snapped a marble banister in half last Tuesday. She paused, with one hand. What do you want me to do about it? Nessa looked at her. Exhaust him. Elara choked on her tea. I'm serious, Nessa said. I've been in this castle 30 years. I've served 3 kings, and I've never seen one of them look at anyone the way he looks at you. Like you could unmake him with a word. He's ancient, he's powerful, and he has absolutely no idea what to do with the fact that he wants you and won't touch you without permission. She leaned closer. So go in there, take charge, tire him out until he collapses, because if he cracks one more banister, it's coming out of my repair budget. Elara stared at her. You're telling me to seduce the Vampire King. I'm telling you to put the poor bastard to sleep. That night, Elara unlocked her door, crossed the corridor, and did not knock. She pushed his door open. He was at the window again, shirtless this time. She hadn't expected that. The expanse of pale skin, the lean musculature, the old scars that told stories she hadn't earned yet. He turned, and his eyes widened when he saw her. She was wearing a sleeping gown, thin. She had chosen it deliberately. Elara. His voice was rough. What? Don't talk. She crossed the room. The iron smell hit her in waves, hot, alive, pulsing from his skin the way a heartbeat would from anyone else. She stopped a foot from him and put her hands on his chest. He went absolutely rigid. Tell me to stop, she said, and I will. I am not going to tell you to stop. Then tell me what you want. His hands came up, slowly, trembling, which shocked her because she had never seen him tremble, and settled on her waist. His fingers spanned her ribcage, cool against the thin fabric. She felt every point of contact separately, 5 distinct impressions that were nothing. Nothing like the ones Aldrich had left. You, he said. I want you. But I need you to understand what that means. Tell me. I am faster than you, stronger than you. I could hurt you without intending to. My instincts are not gentle, Elara. When I'm close to you, when I smell your skin, your blood, He stopped. His jaw clenched. I need you to set the pace, every step. I need you to tell me what is allowed, because if I lose control, I will never forgive myself. She reached up and put her hands on either side of his face, drew him down until his forehead rested against hers. The iron smell was dizzying this close, laced with something sweeter. His hunger, she realized, the scent of his wanting. I'll tell you, she whispered, every step. Yes, kiss me. He kissed her. Not gently. He tried. She could feel the restraint in his jaw, in the careful pressure of his mouth. But the moment her lips parted against his, something broke loose. His hands tightened on her waist, pulling her against him, and she felt the full length of his body against hers, the hard planes, the cool skin warming rapidly everywhere they touched, the unmistakable evidence that he wanted her pressed against her hip. She gasped against his mouth. He pulled back immediately. Don't stop, she said. Elara, don't stop. He kissed her again, deeper, his tongue sliding against hers, and one hand slid up her back, fingers catching in the fabric of her gown. She arched into him, and the sound he made, low, torn from somewhere deep in his chest, sent a bolt of heat through her entire body. Can I? His hand was at her shoulder, fingers hooked under the strap of her gown. Tell me. Yes, he drew the strap down, then the other. The gown slipped to her waist, and the cool air hit her bare skin at the same moment his gaze did. He looked at her, not with hunger, or not only with hunger, with something that bordered on reverence. You are... He didn't finish. Instead, his mouth found her collarbone, her throat, the hollow beneath her ear, and his hands mapped the terrain of her skin with a care that made her chest ache. She pushed him backward. He let her guide him to the bed, let her press him down, let her climb over him so that she was above, in control, her thighs on either side of his hips. The iron smell rose from his skin in waves of heat, and she pressed her palms flat against his chest and felt the absence where a heartbeat should have been. Still telling me, he said. His hands were on her thighs, thumbs drawing slow circles against her skin. Still listening. I know. She rolled her hips against him experimentally and watched his eyes slam shut, his neck arching back, his fingers digging into the mattress on either side of his legs, deliberately away from her skin. You can hold me, she said. I'm not fragile. You're human. I'm your wife. His eyes opened. Dark. Wanting. Say that again. I'm your wife. His hands returned to her body, her hips, her waist, sliding up her ribs, and he sat up beneath her so that they were chest to chest, her legs wrapped around him, his mouth at her throat. She felt his teeth, not biting, not breaking skin, just present, a reminder of what he was and what he was choosing not to do. I want all of you, she said against his ear. Now. He pulled back to look at her. Are you certain? Cale. The sound of his name in her mouth did something to him. She could see it, the last thread of restraint fraying. His hands tightened. His breath came faster, that unnecessary breathing he did for her sake. Then tell me if I'm too fast, he said. Tell me if I'm too rough. Tell me if anything. She kissed him to silence. What followed was not gentle and was not rough. It was something between, his body moving against hers, inside hers, with a desperate care that spoke of centuries of control, now channeled into the single purpose of her pleasure. Every thrust checked against her expression, every acceleration preceded by a question, spoken or not, answered by the clutch of her fingers in his hair, the press of her heels against his back, the sound of his name breaking apart in her mouth. The iron smell was everywhere, in the sheets, in his skin, in the sweat that formed where their bodies met. She tasted it on his mouth when she kissed him. She breathed it in when she buried her face in his neck and came apart with a cry that she would have been embarrassed by if he hadn't followed immediately, his whole body shuddering, his face pressed against her shoulder, her name leaving his lips like a prayer torn free of a language he'd forgotten. He held her afterward, didn't leave. She had expected him to leave, had braced for it, but he gathered her against his chest and pulled the ruined sheets around them both and lay in the dark, breathing, not needing to, doing it anyway because the rhythm of it matched hers. Stay. She said, yes. He stayed. He slept, actually slept. For the first time in days, his body curled around hers, one arm heavy across her waist. She lay awake and listened, the silence where his heartbeat should have been, and traced the old scars on his forearm and thought, this is not what I was told monsters do. In the morning, she woke to find him propped on one elbow, watching her, not touching, waiting. Good morning, he said. Good morning. I want to kiss you. May I? She pulled him down by the back of his neck and kissed him until he laughed against her mouth, an actual laugh, startled and rough and real. And then she kissed him again because the sound of it was the best thing she had ever heard. But when she moved against him, when her hips pressed into his and his body responded instantly, he caught her wrists gently and brought them to his lips. I want to, believe that I want to, but I need you to eat first and drink water and tell me, he hesitated. Tell me this is what you actually want, not obligation, not treaty, not fear. Cale, tell me. I want this. I want you, not the alliance, not the treaty, not the survival of my people. She pressed her forehead against his. You, the creature who cracked a door frame because someone hurt me, the king who gave me a lock and promised never to use the key. You. He closed his eyes. And for one moment, she saw what he looked like, without the crown and the control and the centuries of practiced stillness. Young and grateful and terrified. She held him until the terror passed. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of nights that began with her crossing the corridor and ended with his body wrapped around hers, his breathing matched to hers, the iron smell woven so deeply into her skin that she couldn't distinguish it from her own scent anymore. She learned the geography of his body the way she'd once learned maps of border territories. Every scar, every line, every place that made him gasp or shudder, or go perfectly still with pleasure. But on the 22nd night, She noticed something wrong. The iron smell sharpened, not warm anymore. Acrid, bitter, wrong. She was lying against his chest when she felt it, a heat that shouldn't have been there. Vampires ran cool. Their skin was always several degrees below human temperature. But Cale's chest was hot beneath her cheek, and when she pressed her hand flat against his sternum, she felt something pulsing, irregular, arrhythmic, sick. Cale, you're burning. He was quiet for too long. How long? She asked. Months. Before you came. It's accelerating. She sat up, looked at him. In the candlelight, his skin had a faint grayish cast she had been attributing to the hour, to the darkness, to her own human eyes. But it wasn't the light. It was him. What is it? A curse. Blood-bound. Laid generations ago on the Vorath line. Every king eventually succumbs. My father lasted 40 years before it consumed him. He paused. I am in my 38th year of reign. 2 years. You have 2 years, perhaps less. The fever has started early. The iron smell curdled in her throat. She tasted ash. She tasted death. You married me knowing you were dying. I married you because I was dying. Because Aldrich convinced me that a treaty bride would stabilize the court after I was gone. A human queen, loyal to the alliance, controllable. His mouth twisted. He did not account for you being you. She pressed her hand against his burning chest. There has to be a cure. There isn't. But there was. She knew because she had always known, had carried the knowledge in her blood since birth, a secret her mother had whispered to her on her deathbed. The Voss bloodline carried old magic, healing magic. Blood freely given from a Voss woman could break a blood-bound curse, could purify corrupted vampire lineage, could do what no medicine or magic in the undead world had ever accomplished. Her mother had told her, never let them know. If the vampires learn what your blood can do, they will bleed you dry and call it mercy. She had guarded this secret through the treaty negotiations, through the marriage arrangement, through every moment in this castle. She had told no one, and now the man she loved was dying, and the cure was running through her veins, and if she told him, he might use her, drain her, see her as medicine instead of a wife, or he might refuse, because he was Cale, and he would rather die than take something from her without her full, free, joyful consent. She said nothing. Not yet. Instead, she held him through the fever and pressed her cool cloths against his burning skin, and breathed through the sharp, acrid iron that told her time was running out. Why didn't you tell me sooner? She asked, and he answered in the dark, and they talked until dawn, about the curse, about his father, about the centuries of kings who had burned from the inside out, while their courts crumbled around them. He told her about the fear, not of dying, of leaving. I have lived long enough, he said, but I have not lived long enough with you. On the 26th night, Aldrich made his move. Ilara was in the library when the castle's physician, a vampire named Severin who had served the Vorath line for centuries, found her. I need to tell you something, Severin said, and you need to hear it before Aldrich reaches the council chamber. Tell me. The curse on the Vorath bloodline was not laid by an enemy. It was laid by a Thane, Aldrich's ancestor. 300 years ago, during a power struggle for the throne, the Thanes lost and they cursed the Vorath line to ensure that no king would rule long enough to build a dynasty. Every generation the curse activates, every generation the king burns, and every generation the Thane advisor is there to pick up the pieces. Ilara stared at him. Aldrich arranged your marriage, Severin continued. He chose you specifically, not because you were disposable, because he knows about the Voss bloodline. He knows your blood can break the curse. He's been blocking you from learning the truth so that Cale dies on schedule and Aldrich can seize the regency. How do you know about my blood? Your mother was not the only one who knew. There are records, old ones. Aldrich destroyed most of them, but I kept copies. Severin's eyes were steady. He needs Kale to die. He needs you ignorant. And right now, he is in the council chamber, arguing that your marriage should be annulled on the grounds that you've bewitched the king with human sorcery. The iron smell hit her, not from the stones now, but from her own chest, her own blood, rising hot and urgent. She ran. The council chamber was in chaos when she arrived. Aldrich stood at the center, silver-haired and composed, addressing a circle of vampire lords with the easy authority of a man who had been planning this for decades. The human woman has clearly compromised the king's judgment. His deterioration has accelerated since the marriage. The correlation is undeniable. The correlation, Elara said from the doorway, is that you've been poisoning him. Every head turned. Not with a substance, she continued, walking forward, her voice shaking but carrying. With a curse. One your family laid 300 years ago. One that activates in every Vorath king. One that you have maintained and weaponized for generations to ensure that the Thane family controls the throne, without ever sitting on it. Aldrich's composure held. Barely. This is the bewitchment I spoke of. She's delusional. Severin has the records. The physician stepped into the chamber behind her, carrying a leather case thick with ancient documents. Aldrich's composure cracked. Elara found Kale in his chambers. The fever was worse. His skin was grey, his breathing ragged, the iron smell so sharp it cut her throat. He was standing because he refused to lie down, but his hand was braced against the wall, and she could see the fine tremor running through his entire body. Elara. Her name broken in his mouth. I heard what happened in the council. Aldrich, I should have seen it, I should have... Stop. Listen to me. I'm listening. She took his face in her hands. His skin burned against her palms. I'm pregnant. The world stopped. What? He whispered. 4 weeks. I didn't know until the physician confirmed it yesterday. Kale, you're going to be a father. The sound he made was not human. It was not vampire. It was something older than both. A raw, broken, desperate sound that came from a man who had believed he was dying alone and had just been told he was leaving behind everything. You can't. You'll leave, she heard herself say, and she didn't know where the words came from, only that they were true, that this was her deepest fear given voice. You'll die and I'll be alone and our child will grow up without you and I can't. Elara, I was wrong to be afraid. I was wrong to keep secrets from you. Because I have one, Kale. I have a secret that can save your life, and I didn't tell you because I was afraid that if you knew, you would see me as a cure instead of a wife. He went still. What secret? My blood. The Voss bloodline carries healing magic. Blood freely given can break a blood-bound curse. I've known since before I came here, my mother told me. I didn't tell you because... She was crying now, and she couldn't stop. Because I thought if you knew what I could do, you would stop seeing me, stop wanting me. I would just be medicine. He stared at her. The fever raged behind his eyes. She could see it consuming him, the iron smell choking the room. And he said, You thought knowing you could save my life would make me love you less? Yes, Elara Vorath. You magnificent, impossible woman. His hands came up, shaking, burning, and framed her face with a tenderness that defied the fire eating him alive. How could I not love you more? She sobbed. Once, hard, he began, and collapsed. His body hit the floor. The iron smell exploded, acrid, burning, metallic, filling the room with the scent of a body consuming itself from the inside. His skin was grey. His eyes were open but unfocused. The fever had crested. No, Elara said. No, no, no. She dropped to her knees beside him, grabbed his hand. It was so hot it nearly blistered her skin. She didn't hesitate. She brought his hand to her mouth and bit down on her own wrist, hard enough to break skin, hard enough to bleed, and pressed the wound against his lips. Drink, she said. Freely given. Do you hear me? Freely given. He was too far gone to respond. But his lips parted, and her blood touched his tongue, and the effect was immediate. Light, actual light, warm and gold, not the cold luminescence of vampire power, but something older, something human and raw and alive, burst from the point of contact. It raced through his body, following the lines of his veins, burning the curse out of him the way fire burns through dead wood. She could see it, could see the corruption retreating, the dark threads of the 300-year-old curse unraveling under the onslaught of her blood. Her choice, her love made physical and given without condition. Cale's body arched off the floor. His mouth opened in a silent scream. The light intensified until Elara couldn't see, couldn't hear, could only feel her blood leaving her body and entering his and doing what it had been born to do. The curse shattered. She felt it go. A sound that wasn't a sound, a rupture that wasn't physical, a breaking that was also a mending. The iron smell transformed one final time, from acrid to warm to something entirely new. Clean, fresh, like rain on stone, like the first breath after drowning. Cale gasped, his eyes focused, his skin cooled. His hand closed around her wrist, not to drink more but to pull it gently away from his mouth, to press his thumb against the wound and stop her bleeding. "Enough," he whispered. "Elara, enough." "You've done enough." She was shaking, light-headed from blood loss, but alive, and he was alive, and the iron smell in the room was clean for the first time since she'd entered this castle. He sat up, drew her against his chest, held her. "Breathe," he said. She breathed. Aldrich did not go quietly. They found him in the eastern tower, attempting to burn the records Severin had secured. He had barricaded the door. He had armed himself with a blade coated in something dark, a poison, Elara would later learn, distilled from the same curse magic his family had wielded for centuries. Cale went alone. Elara waited outside, flanked by guards, her wrist bandaged, her heartbeat steady. She heard the conversation through the door. "You knew," Cale said. "From the beginning." "I preserved this court," Aldrich replied, and his voice had lost its silk. It was stripped bare now, bitter and righteous and desperate. "Every Vorath king burns, every one. Your father, his father, 6 generations of self-destructing monarchs who couldn't hold a kingdom together long enough to matter. The Thanes kept Ashenmore alive. We managed the transitions. We ensured continuity. Without us, this kingdom would have collapsed into chaos 2 centuries ago. You cursed my bloodline. My ancestors corrected a mistake. The Voraths were never meant to rule forever. You were meant to serve a purpose and step aside. The curse was a mercy, a clean death, a managed succession, a controlled transfer of power. You chose my wife, because her blood could break it. I chose her because her blood was the only threat to 300 years of careful stewardship. If she'd been kept ignorant, if she'd lived out her little human life in your shadow without ever learning what she carried, you would have died on schedule. The regency would have passed to me. The treaty would have held. Everyone would have survived. Except me. You were always going to die, Cale. I was simply managing the timeline." A pause. I didn't want to hurt her. The bruises were necessary. She was asking too many questions, getting too close too quickly. I needed her frightened, compliant. I needed her to stay in her room and fulfill her function and let nature take its course. Her function, treaty bride, symbol, nothing more. She was never supposed to matter to you. Silence. Then Cale said very quietly, "She is everything." More silence. "Put down the blade, Aldrich. If you arrest me, the Thane family will rebel. The Thane family will be given a choice. Disavow you and retain their holdings, or stand with you and face judgment. I suspect self-preservation will outweigh loyalty. You're making a mistake. I made a mistake 38 years ago when I trusted you. I am correcting it now." The door opened. Aldrich came out in chains, his silver hair disordered, his sharp smile gone, his wrists bound by 2 guards who had once taken orders from him and who now did not meet his eyes. He passed Elara without speaking, then stopped. You ruined everything, he said. I saved my husband, she said. Nessa, appearing from nowhere with the impeccable timing of a woman who had survived 30 years in a vampire court, grabbed Aldrich's collar and steered him bodily toward the stairs. Dungeons this way, my lord. Mind the steps. They're steep. It would be a terrible shame if you fell. Aldrich was led away. Elara did not watch him go. She watched Cale, standing in the doorway of the tower, the clean iron smell rolling off him in waves, his color restored, his eyes clear, his body no longer burning. He walked to her, took her bandaged wrist, lifted it to his lips and pressed a kiss against the cloth, the place where she had bled for him, the wound that had broken a 300-year curse, the price she had paid freely and without hesitation. I love you, he said. Complete, unbroken, every syllable whole. I love you, Elara Vorath. I have loved you since you stood at the bottom of my throne and refused to kneel. I will love you until this castle crumbles and the stones forget my name. And if you will let me, I will spend whatever years I have left making certain that you never doubt it. She put her hand on his chest. No heartbeat. There never would be. But warmth. Steady human temperature warmth. The curse's fever replaced by something gentler, something borrowed from her blood and made permanent. I never doubted, she said. He pulled her close. She pressed her face against his shoulder and breathed in. Clean iron, warm stone, rain. Peace. Aldrich Thane was tried before the assembled court 3 days later. Severin presented the records. 6 Thane family members disavowed him within the hour. He was convicted of treason, cursecraft, assault on the Queen, and conspiracy to commit regicide, and sentenced to imprisonment in the deep vaults beneath Ashenmoor, the ones with no doors and no windows and no sound, where a vampire could survive for centuries with nothing but darkness and the memory of what he had lost. He did not apologize. Elara did not need him to. The treaty held, not because of a marriage, but because of a queen who had walked into a monster's court and chosen, freely and deliberately, to love what she found there. 7 months later, in a room that smelled of clean iron and warm stone, Elara Vorath gave birth to a daughter with dark eyes and warm skin and a heartbeat. A real one, steady and strong, the first heartbeat in the Vorath line in 300 years. Cale held his daughter and did not speak for a full minute. When he finally did, his voice was wrecked. She has your stubbornness, he said. I can already tell. Good, Elara said. She'll need it. He sat beside her on the bed, their daughter between them, and the room was warm, and the iron was clean, and the door was unlocked, and the key was right where it belonged, in her hand. Always in her hand. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment with the moment that broke you. And stay tuned, because the Vampire King's story isn't over. Not even close.